Renting is now cheaper than buying a home in the UK. This is a big statement. And according to the real estate agency Hamptons, it is the first time in 6 years that it has been cheaper to rent than to buy. So I came across this article on the BBC website and I'll link it down below. And I was like, what? I ignorantly thought that it's always been cheaper to buy than rent. But apparently it's only been cheaper in the last 6 years, and that's the time that I've actually been renting, so that makes sense. So I guess for me it always has been, but now it has changed. So what does that mean for us? Should we rent versus buy a home in the UK? Should we sell our houses and start renting to save some money? Well, all of this will be revealed very shortly. But before we get into it, this video is sponsored by Freetrade, the investing app. It's not actually a sponsor. Just plug a free trade link as people can get a free £10 share when they sign up until the end of this month. Do it. That's awkward. So let's look at why you'd rent instead of buying and why you'd buy instead of renting. And hopefully you can get a whole full picture. But just to note, I am biased towards renting at the moment, so just bear that in mind. So why would you rent instead of buying? So for all areas except the northeast, the northwest, Yorkshire and Humber and Scotland, it is actually currently cheaper to rent than it is to buy. This is likely to change as we go back to normal life and everything sort of goes back to normal. But the reason for this is that people are working from home, so they no longer have to live near the office. They can work from wherever they want and commute maybe once a week, twice a week, so they can move out of London, perhaps move out of the city into a rural area, which most of the time means cheaper cost of living and cheaper housing. So going back to the cheaper thing, for where I live in Greater London, apparently it is actually £251 cheaper to rent, which is kind of mad when you think about it, because if you decided to use this saving and invest it into, let's say, a low-cost index fund that returned around 6% after inflation, then this would net you around 200 grand over a mortgage period of 25 years. So obviously that is a huge saving if you decided to put that money to work. But remember, this is just an average, so £250 may be applicable to some areas, but not where you live in London or around the country. And obviously you're not going to see that £250 actually in your pocket, because you're probably not going to be moving from buying to renting. So that's something to consider, but just to know there is a little bit of a saving there feels pretty good to me. So another reason why you'd rent over buying is freedom! So you can't put a price on freedom, but renting almost allows you to live anywhere, whereas buying only allows you to live where you can afford. So that is the difference. And part and parcel of that freedom is that it allows you to move places. So you don't have to stay in one place for a long period of time. You can stay in one place for 1 year, move to another place, and you can just explore the different areas of your area or areas of the world, which is a lot more difficult when you have a house and a mortgage. So for a wilderness explorer like myself, renting is a good thing. Of course, one of the main things that renting has over buying is that there's no maintenance costs. So if your boiler goes, then the landlord will fix it. If your shower head falls off because Ruby falls over, then the landlord will fix it. So that is a peace of mind, knowing that if something does happen, then the landlord will fix it. Jim will fix it, Bob the builder will build it. You know what I mean? And on top of this, the upfront costs of renting are significantly less than buying. So when you're buying a place, you need to put at least 5% down, all the way up to 20%. So depending on your credit score and how much you've got saved up and your jobs, etc., this could be a lot of money. And the next reason why renting wins over buying is that you can live like you're in Hollywood. Now, let me explain. A lot of people in Hollywood actually rent, because unless you're ultra rich and ultra famous, then you will not be able to afford to buy a place out there. But the reason that people populate here is because it is the land of opportunity. If you have to rent in a place which breeds opportunity for 5, 10, 15 years in order to get your dream job and become uber successful, then that rent money will not be dead money. It won't be wasted, because it's an investment in yourself and your career. Obviously, this doesn't work in every industry. For example, if you're a Domino's driver, moving to another place may not help your career progression that much. No offense to Domino's drivers, because I was a Domino's driver. I got your back. But in most cases and most careers, if you move closer to the action and closer to the opportunity, you can meet people, you can create better opportunities and thrive in your career, and that could be worth a lot more than saving 250 quid on rent. And the last point why I think you should rent over buying is that renting is linked to happiness. If you look at the world's happiness charts, I know it's a thing. I've talked about this before. However, countries with lower rates of home ownership actually have higher scores of happiness. But I'm not naive to think that it's all about the individual, and if you think that it will bring you more happiness to have a house and have that security and sort of calmness that owning a home may have, then of course the world is your lobster. So now let's do a little switch around. Why would you buy instead of renting? A lot of people say and use the argument that renting is paying someone else's mortgage. So if you are renting, instead of building equity in your own property, you're actually building equity in your landlord's property. And this is one of the strongest arguments for buying, and I do agree. But what I don't agree with is when people say that renting is throwing away money, because it's really not. You have a roof over your head and obviously all the other reasons that I just said. So let's move on to the next one rather swiftly before I just get heated and my rage kicks in. So I do agree that if you can actually build equity and pay off your mortgage, it'll put you in a really, really solid position for your retirement. Which is sort of my second point. If you rent for 25 years, you don't really come out with anything, apart from obviously you've had a place to stay and the memories, etc, etc. But if you have bought a place and after that period of time, then you're free to do what you want. You've paid off your house, you can retire, you can go travel, and you've still got that house to come home to, and all you've got to pay for is the bills and keeping the lights on, etc. Which in comparison to a mortgage is cool. So you can go and spend that hard-earned bread across the world. And the next point is you own the place after you've paid off your mortgage. So that is a big plus, which means you can do what you like to it. So you can change the wall, you can change the shape of it, you can build an extension within reason, of course, because you have to get planning permission, etc, etc. However, whether you are restoring the property or you're adding value to the property, this allows you to potentially make profit on the property when you decide to sell, if you decide to sell, of course. And obviously with renting, you can't really do any of that. You have to stick with what you've got, and there's not really much room for creativity, and the space is sort of limited. You get what you're given, and that's it, you can't change it. And the next point is, I sort of mentioned earlier, which is security. Some people love the fact that they are secure, they are at peace with the world, they are content with having a mortgage. They can get on with their life, they can do what they want, and they know that they've got this house that they're paying off. Down the line, they'll have it, they'll own every single part of it, and they won't have to pay that mortgage anymore, and they'll be very secure after that point. So it's about getting to that point and just being like, oh, I'm secure now. So should you buy or should you rent? Well, I mean, I'm not a financial advisor and I'm not a real estate expert, so it all depends on your personal circumstances. But in my opinion, I think if you are under 30, then I don't think there is any point in buying unless you're absolutely desperate to do so. Because unless you live in the northeast, northwest, Yorkshire and Humber, or Scotland, then it's not really cost effective at this point. Use this opportunity before kids and marriage, etc, etc, to explore different areas, visit new locations, and maybe enhance your career. If you give yourself more time to buy, one, it gives you more time to save, and two, you're more likely to be earning more money in a few years' time after you've had a few more years in your career and you've decided what route you're going to go, or route you're going to go in your career. And that means you can put down a bigger deposit and potentially get something that you actually want, not just something that you have to get because that's the only thing you can afford. At the end of the day, buying a house / flat or whatever you want to buy is a very big commitment, so there's no point in rushing. However, if you are over 30 and you have your deposit and you have the perfect house you want to get, then go for it. It's the perfect time to buy a house if it's the perfect time for you. But if you're on the fence, then don't. Find that perfect place that's 95% perfect, because nothing's ever perfect, and make sure it's a right decision, because at the end of the day it is a big decision and you want to get it right. And the last question I said I would answer is, should you sell your house and start renting to save some money? Well, I hope this is obvious, but the answer is no. If you are a homeowner, you should stay a homeowner. Unless you're a billionaire like Elon Musk, then you can do what you want. Going back to it, the amount of money that you'd save on renting versus buying would not really touch the sides if you are building equity in that property. So from my perspective, if you are in, you're in for good. So stick it out. And that's why it's important to make the right decision at the start. And even if it does take you a few years to work this out and make the right decision, and that's okay, because the right decision could save you tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, depending on your price range. So it definitely pays to be patient. So to summarize, I said this in my last video, why I still rent at 25, but I think it's worth repeating. I don't like being tied down much, so renting gives us the option to explore new areas and live in an area that we could not afford in a million years at this current point. So for me, renting is the option right now, but not forever. And that's it from me. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button if you like the video and comment something nice. And don't forget to get your free stock from Free Trade, because they're doing a special offer over £10. So you might as well do it and get that free £10. And I'm not a millionaire, but I'm trying to help you become one. So peace.